A long-awaited summit between President Trump and Chinese leader Xi Jinping might be postponed, according to Bloomberg. The Mar-a-Lago meeting, originally scheduled for this month, will most likely take place at the end of April, if at all. This coming as former White House economic advisor Gary Cohn is weighing in on the president's pursuit to reach a deal during a podcast interview yesterday. Take a listen.
I think the U.S. is desperate right now for an agreement.
An agreement or a headline?
The president needs a win. The only big open issue right now that he could claim as a big win that he would hope would have a big impact on the stock market would be a Chinese resolution.
All right, so there you go. A big impact on the stock market. We all know President Trump might need that. Yahoo Finance's Rick Newman joins us now to discuss. Rick, first question, I guess, is President Trump says he's in no rush to complete a deal. But obviously, the longer this ticks on, do you think pressure hits him harder than it does the Chinese negotiating side?
He is antsy for a deal, no doubt about it. I guess you can define what a rush would be. But I think Gary Cohn is spot on. He's basically saying what all the China and the trade experts have been saying all along about what kind of deal is possible and the likelihood of getting major reforms. But of course, he has more authority on this because he was an insider in the Trump White House and he was involved on this issue to some extent for the first year and a half of the Trump administration. But I don't think it's a surprise that we're seeing a slippage in the deadline. And I think we should remember the Chinese never said they were, they never said, yes, we're firm on a March 27th date at Mar-a-Lago. In fact, they have been fairly skittish about that. And they seem very reluctant and actually very shrewd about not getting drawn into some situation where Trump kind of makes an offer they can't refuse, and they could face some embarrassment if Trump walks away, as he did with North Korea. I don't think that walking away from North Korea was a win for Trump at all. I think it was embarrassing because he flew all the way over to the other side of the world to have a meeting where absolutely nothing happened. Is that leverage for Trump in the China negotiations? I guess a little bit, but the Chinese, again, very smart. They're watching this and saying, nope, we're not playing that game. We're not going to send our leader for a big signing ceremony unless we know a deal has already been basically agreed to.
Well, you mentioned him walking out in the North Korea negotiations, but in terms of that being used as a negotiating ploy here against Xi Jinping, do you think that plays a part in it and saying, I could walk away from this and have no second doubts about it? You mentioned also the kicking the can down the road. We moved past the March 1st deadline where we were talking about tariff hikes. And now if we move past this Mar-a-Lago meeting that you say never really was firmly set on the calendar, how does that change the way that the market might be looking at this?
Well, first of all, I don't think there's really a useful parallel with the North Korea situation because for Trump, when Trump walked away from that, nothing changed. But Trump is the one who has set the terms for the outcome of a deal here. And for Trump to walk away, that would trigger what he has already said would happen, which is a strong negative for the markets, which is the imposition of these additional tariffs, which would be more stringent than the new tariffs that are already in place. So it's actually, these dynamics are totally different. I forget what the other part of the question was, but I think Trump is losing leverage the longer this drags on because he is basically, what he is doing is conditioning the markets and investors to believe that they don't have to worry about any further trade hostilities or protectionism between the United States and China. He basically did not do what he said he was going to do. The March 1st deadline, it was his deadline, by the way, came and went without a deal. Trump had said, if we don't have a deal, I'm going to impose new tariffs. There was no deal, and he blinked. He did not impose new tariffs. And it's obvious we don't have a deal. So I think Trump is losing leverage as time goes by, and I think it's going to just get harder and harder for him to actually do anything because markets would react more adversely as time goes on.
That was the second part of my question. You answered it. You always answer my questions.
I'm so glad.
Thanks for being here. Appreciate it. I want to check in.